Hello, dear friends. Today we continue our acquaintance with the memoirs of Waffen SS Major General Kurt Meyer. Don't forget to rate the video and leave your opinion about this material. Well, let's begin. SS Hauptsturmführer Erich touched his steel helmet with his index finger, shouted, "Go!" to the lead platoon, and rushed across the wide square at full speed. He disappeared behind the wide street leading to the center of Kherson. The platoon followed their leader. Armored vehicles fired their guns at the space in front of the houses. The muffled explosions of hand grenades indicated that close combat had begun. I followed the advance platoon and suddenly found myself back at the Dnieper. The road wound like a snake through the old fortress district. From the southeast bank of the river, Russian artillery began intense shelling of the road. Soviet sailors fought with the ferocity of wild cats. The fire forced us to leave our vehicles and continue the battle on foot. A row of houses shielded us from view from the east bank of the river. Pressing close to the walls, we fought for every house on both sides of the street. Erich fought like a lion. This blond warrior roared, jumping from passage to passage, setting the pace for the attack. Machine gun fire sent sparks flying from the sidewalk. The attack stopped. The machine gun fire was almost an insurmountable obstacle for the leading units. But for Erich, there was no stopping. He knew we had to reach the port to prevent the Soviet troops from organizing their defense. Erich lay a few steps away, clutching his machine gun tightly in his strong hands, his legs pulled up close to his body. Throwing his helmet back, he commanded, "First platoon, advance, cross the road, get ready, go!" I saw the young soldiers jump up, rush across the street, and fall to the sidewalk as if they had been mowed down by a burst of fire. Their coordinated dash fooled the enemy machine gunner. Soon he stopped firing. We reached a small square. Sailors took up positions among the decorative bushes and tried to stop our advance. As I threw myself forward, I suddenly saw Erich fall onto the pavement. His machine gun fell onto the asphalt with a metallic clang. Erich bent over, his hands searching for something to grab onto. He scraped his hands across the ground. The Grenadiers dragged their platoon commander to the wall of a house and shouted for medics. A bullet had split Erich's skull. I wanted to say a few words and shake his hand, but he could no longer hear anything. It was his last battle. 2 days later, after dictating a letter to his wife, he closed his eyes forever. In Erich, the company lost one of its best non-commissioned officers, and I lost one of my most loyal soldiers. The battle was getting fiercer. Russian artillery was firing down the street. Fuel depots were burning. Thick smoke billowed high into the air, and everything was flying up from the explosions. Wanting to find shelter on the street that was under fire, I threw my whole weight against some kind of gate, but it was bolted shut. Bullets hit the sidewalk and ricocheted with a screech. I thought the game was over and ran down the street, fired upon by sailors. I thought a kiosk would provide cover, but bullets split its thin wooden walls, and machine gun fire blew the kiosk to pieces. A chainsaw couldn't have done a better job. Pressing myself tightly to the ground, I waited for the end of the firefight between the Soviet soldiers and the soldiers of my first platoon. Once again, I was caught between two positions. After a few minutes, the situation calmed down, and the attack on the port continued. Soviet troops retreated to the port area. 2 large ferries at the pier picked up those fleeing. We were getting closer and closer. Whistling mortar shells hindered our rapid advance toward the port, but we were unstoppable. Street after street, house after house fell into our hands. Studded with wide-headed nails, our boots clattered loudly on the pavement of this strategically important city on the Dnieper. Our machine guns fired at the pier. They were not heavy weapons, but the effect of their fire was deadly. Ignoring the people still running toward them, the ships cast off and headed for the southeast shore. As the ferries moved heavily and awkwardly away from the pier, people clung to the sides of the ships, hanging like bunches of grapes. Barrels of oil and fuel flew through the air, and people engulfed in flames jumped to their deaths, disappearing in the strong current of the river. Some Russians emerged from this hell in tears, while others sought salvation by throwing themselves into the Dnieper. A tractor with an anti-aircraft gun drove through the thick smoke from the burning barrels and took up a convenient firing position. No sooner had the gun been brought into combat position than the first shell flew out of the barrel and exploded in the bow of one of the large ferries. The gun stood under a hail of fire in full view of the Russian artillerymen. The ammunition, vehicles, and fuel left behind burned and exploded, and debris whizzed around the gun, which stood alone on the pier. Abandoned horses, not knowing where to go and jumping at random, fell into the brownish, fast-flowing stream, choking. A large barge drifted uncontrolled toward the shore and ran aground. Russian soldiers tried to swim to the safety of the shore. Only a few managed to escape. Most of them were carried away by the current into the sea. I heard SS Obersturmführer Naumann shouting as he directed his platoon's second gun to a firing position. He yelled in the heat of battle and rushed to the first gun. My God! At that moment, I saw the danger. But the Grenadiers at the gun obviously did not notice it, absorbed in the firefight. The gun slowly rolled down the pier and plopped into the Dnieper. Fortunately, all the soldiers survived, but our gun was lost. It was a great loss. The shooting in the port subsided. Only a few shells whistled over us and exploded somewhere in the city. The connection with the Leibstandarte Division, which was attacking from the northwest, was made at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The battle for Kherson was over. With the fires in the port extinguished, work began to restore and maintain order in the city. It was cleared of debris, citizens came out of their shelters, and children were the first to start communicating with German soldiers. On August 22nd, the Hitzfeld Regiment replaced our battalion. The 73rd Infantry Division reached the Dnieper and prepared to cross it north of Kherson. Continuous fighting until the very last moment placed excessive demands on our battalion and cost it dearly. Heavy losses eloquently spoke of the need for people to rest and equipment to be repaired. Officers and soldiers did everything in their power to accomplish their tasks. The battalion had long been feeding itself and required thorough medical examination. Finally, we were in dire need of reinforcements, both in personnel and combat equipment. The Leibstandarte Division was withdrawn from the front line and was to be re-equipped and replenished within a week. We were glad for this break and enjoyed the few remaining sunny days of rest as a gift from God. All our desires were satisfied. We went to bed at the end of the day and basked in relative peace. But soon, concern arose. It soon became clear to us that there would be no repairs. The repair and restoration services did try to repair the weapons and military equipment, but their efforts were a drop in the ocean. There were not enough spare parts. The battalion partially armed itself with captured equipment. We also had to wait a long time for reinforcements. Day after day passed, and the eagerly awaited reinforcements from Germany still did not arrive. The result of this re-equipment was that serious problems had to be raised with senior commanders. At the beginning of the war, we had a specific and achievable goal: the Dnieper. We were fully manned when we began our advance toward this goal and fought with absolute confidence in its achievability. But now, After so many battles and reaching this waterline, our battalion was no longer a full-fledged combat unit. We could only field a fraction of our former strength. It didn't take much effort to calculate how long it would be before our proud battalion ceased to exist as a combat-ready unit. What would happen when we crossed the Dnieper with this battered battalion and moved east? What were our goals? Would we be able to achieve them before winter set in? We talked about the Don, the Volga, and the Caucasus. The endless expanse of Russian territory overwhelmed us. We began to think like Russians. Never mind, we'll break through. I led my vanguard battalion to the Dnieper again on September 8th and crossed the river on September 9th at 5 o'clock in the evening. The bridgehead on the left bank of the river was taken by the 73rd Infantry Division under the command of General Byler. We slowly crossed the wide, muddy waters on a rickety pontoon bridge. Assault guns and tanks were transported separately on ferries. The commander of the crossing area handed me an order from the Army Corps and at the same time informed me that my battalion, after completing the river crossing, was to be attached to the 73rd Infantry Division. The division commander was waiting for me southeast of Berislav. Accompanied by 2 messengers on motorcycles, I slowly drove to the command post. Fresh graves of fallen German and Russian soldiers were visible everywhere along the road. In view of the expected night operation, I allowed my soldiers to go to the river to bathe. That's all for today. If you liked the video, please support it with a like and subscribe to the channel. See you all soon.